This is Secrets to Win Big, your roadmap to sustained growth. Brought to you by Arjun Sen, founder and CEO of Zen Mango, top brand growth driver, and a former Fortune 500 executive who has been called one of the most marketing intelligent minds in the business. Find him at zenmango.com. And now, here's your host, Arjun Sen.
Welcome to Secrets to Win Big with Arjun Sen. Hi, this is Arjun. It's really fun to talk to incredible leaders from all walks of life from all over the world. And it's all about winning big. Winning is fun, but winning big puts us on the path to long-term sustainable wins. Today, I'm very fortunate to welcome my VIP guest, Adam Moody. Adam has a very unique and fascinating background from the impact he has already made in his young life. Adam creates and implements highly effective email marketing, full sales funnel with continuous optimization with significant results like generating 7 figures from one sales funnel. Simply brilliant. But what is more fascinating is the path Adam has taken to come here. And I really want to understand and connect the dots to see how can somebody be so incredibly effective marketing based on the journey. Adam started out in Marine Corp, followed by a degree in physics in order to become an optical engineer. He found his calling in the intersection of analytical and design work, creating, building, and optimizing sales funnel profitably. Adam now works for his own business and has a select number of clients via OSS optimization to implement sales funnel and email marketing to generate large ROI and long-term partnerships. And that's the part where, as I started reading this, really hit home is as we get into a vendor mode, we really try to get one more client. But what I love about Adam I want to know more about is this whole partnership long-term that is really fascinating. When not working in these areas, you can find Adam outdoors, trail running, hiking, backpacking, and his wife, Jeney. Adam, welcome to Secrets to Win Big.
Arjun, thank you so much for having me.
So Adam, let's just talk right away at the very beginning about Marine Corps and physics. Like, how do those parts of your journey help you be who you are and make you successful as a human being and the business profession?
Yeah, it's a big area, and I think I'll say that I was writing some notes down while you're introducing me, and a lot of this had to do with finding out things that I don't like doing, and that pointed me in the direction of things I want or opened my eyes to that. So for me, a lot of that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do coming out of high school and then working a job, but then finding I wasn't happy there, so let me try something else. And so, trying the Marine Corps and finding that out and learning so much and, learning about self-motivation and persistence and consistency among, many other things. And then seeing like, hey, that was a great experience, but this isn't what I want to do with my life. So what's next? And deciding, maybe go back to school. I do have this passion to learn and going and doing that, enjoying it, but eventually realizing that also that wasn't the path for me for the long term. I'm still have a love of science, and I'm married to a scientist, and it's interesting, but it's not, I guess, what I was passionate about. So again, decided to kind of change gears there as I was starting by figuring out what I didn't want to do. It was helping me narrow down on what I did want to be doing.
So Adam, let's go back to those 2 amazing left turns you took. Yeah. And it's not very easy for us. When you get into a career, we just look at ROI. We have put so much time, effort, everything else. We need to milk it. But you just quit cold turkey and went and finally found your passion.
Yeah.
So can you take me a little bit back into the time after being part of the Marine Corp? And, congratulations and thank you for your service. What did it take? Like, what was that moment when you felt this is not the right moment, area for me? I'm very proud, but I'm not passionate.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this has happened a lot. Another note I had where I've been blessed with good mentors and coming across people in my life who have been pretty open with me and shared with me their experiences. And so I didn't always have to experience the length of trial and error, but able to learn from them. So in the Marine Corps, I had some really great mentors and people who were upfront with me and said, hey, here's some of the good things about, maybe staying in and making this a career, but here's some of the downsides, whether it's time away from your family family, which everyone knows, but people who had decided to stay in and told me and were very honest about, there are downsides and you need to be aware of this type of a thing. And so taking that helped me make the choice and say, yeah, this isn't going to make me happy long term. I can already see where some of the friction points are and it's not going to get better. So instead of, trying to push through that in that case, like let's cut now and go find something that makes me happier and that I'm able to be passionate about.
Love that. Thanks for sharing. So now let's look at you finished your physics journey and you realized you like physics, love physics, but not passionate about physics. From there, how did you get into this whole journey of optimization and full funnel implementation?
Yeah, this was a fun one. So skipping some of the details, I met my wife, though, in college. We were both doing physics degrees. So we got out. She went on to grad school. I worked at an internship while getting my master's degree and then ended up following her. And so got a job where she was going to school and was working as an engineer. It was fairly interesting, but I was starting to do some self-development. And so I come from a physics background, the Marine Corp, being an engineer and pretty literal, but started understanding, this type of stuff, the self-improvement's really important. Understanding who I'm spending my time around, who are the people that I'm looking up to. And at the company I was working for, just to put it pretty plainly, I wasn't happy with the people I was spending my time around, and that who you work with is a huge part of your life. And I realized that if I wanted to get somewhere, if I wanted to improve myself, I wasn't going to be able to do it when the people I was looking up to who were leading the company, I honestly I don't know how to put this delicately, so I'll just say it. I didn't have a lot of respect for them, and I didn't like what they were doing. I thought that some of the things they were doing were frankly unethical, and that caused a real internal rift in me that I had to rectify, and it took me a year, but I eventually quit that job. I had wrote them a letter and said, here's the things that I see that are going on. We need to change this. If that can't change, then I need to change and leave. And so that's what happened.
Wow. So the reason I say wow is two reasons. One is it took a lot of guts, and secondly, I also realized sometimes life has different purposes for us.
Yeah.
And if you did not pursue the career in physics, you wouldn't have met your wife because you guys crossed paths there. And that was such a fascinating journey.
Right.
So now let's talk a little bit about what you are doing now versus optimization and full funnel implementation optimization. So help me understand a little bit about who you impact and what value you add to them. And what is unique about only Adam? Because the world doesn't need another solution provider, but the world needs you. And what is your unique niche?
Definitely. And I think a little bit more background will help with this answer. So after quitting my job, I had been building websites in the background. It was just something I was interested in, decided to dabble in it. That got me into doing things like content optimization, SEO, website building. And I met my future partners in one of my businesses, and we started a little mastermind that kind of snowballed into a business. And this was now 7-8 years ago. And as part of that, we said, hey, we need a sales funnel. We need email marketing. We need these things. And so I was the one to kind of pick up the reins there and run with it. And we were just self-taught. We were doing training. We were doing a bunch of activities, and this stuff just had to get done. So that's how it got started. And so as far as what makes it unique for me is I really have fun working with people who want help with their own communication, and who also, are at a point where they realize that they don't want to be doing it all themselves. I think it's kind of funny because I got started doing it myself, and I can realize the mistake in that now. I look back and I was like, yeah, you can't be doing all of this stuff yourself. You've got to be delegating it, whether you consider that to be a good part of leadership or just smart business. You reach that point where you can't do it yourself. So I really enjoy forming a partnership with the people I work with. I just work with a handful of clients and really helping them not only to, yes, we can build you a sales funnel or we can put your email marketing together, but working with them to really understand their business and what's going on there. Kind of talking about my background already, I have a pretty broad background. And so it's fun to talk to people, and there's generally additional areas that I can help them with, or at least point them in the right direction instead of just being another content provider of sorts.
Yeah, so I want to pick up where you just finished, is not be another content provider, because on a given day, I get at least a few emails telling me that my website is all wrong. I need to do SEO optimization. and I need a better email campaign. Okay. And most of these guys, the way they approach me tells me they have no clue what they're doing because their own email campaigns are really bad. So let's talk about email campaigns. So anytime you work with a client, what are a few key nuggets at a higher level that you always share with them? That's the difference between a successful, sustained email campaign versus, Arjun, you spend $5,000, get nothing, move on kind of a program.
I think there's a few things. So I'm going to focus on three here. One of them is personalization. And this can be done at scale, or it could be one-to-one, just like the emails you're getting. And a lot of times, the cold email that any of us get is exactly that. It's cold. The person has no idea who they're actually sending it to. They haven't done any research, and it has a very low success rate. And so part of that is if you're doing outreach, which I enjoy and I think is really valid, but you've got to personalize this. And even if it's a minute or two, going and looking at someone's LinkedIn profile, seeing what they're doing and approaching it from that way. What is the benefit to that person of working with you? Which kind of leads into the second part of this, focusing on them, meaning the other person. So this works more for, let's say you have an e-commerce store and you're maybe, as an e-commerce store owner, you're not sending a personalized email to people in general. You may be having some automated emails or maybe a weekly newsletter, but think about it from their point of view. What's the benefit to them, to your subscriber, to your customers? Instead of saying, I always say our favorite subject, right, is ourselves. And you've got to separate that and say, what is their favorite subject? Maybe you have a custom coffee roaster and you're selling beans, but if all you're doing is telling people that and telling people about your business, then in email, you're really losing out. If they're interested in coffee beans, they're probably interested in mugs or teas or how to grind the perfect coffee. There's so many topics in there that you can talk about that they would be interested in. And, focusing on that really builds that relationship, and it's providing some value to them outside of just saying, hey, here's another discount, or, here's a new product, things like that. And then last but not least is just finding out more, right, about your customers and finding out what's going on with them. This can be as simple as sending out a survey, asking people for that information. I know a lot of times business owners forget that they can just ask people for feedback, and lots of times that people are happy to give it, right? People love sharing their opinions, and so we can just do that from time to time. That can be highly personal, or it could be anonymous through a survey. There's a lot to do there, but I think that those three areas can really help people.
Thank you for sharing that. So now let's go to sales funnel. Mm-hmm. That's a very unique part of a business because many of us small business owners, that's not our core skills. Like somehow we are allergic to sales calls. Most of us wing things. There's no process. But on the other side, without a sales funnel, when times go slightly tough, you start feeling the pinch and, it starts hurting you where it hurts most. So how do you help somebody understand the importance of sales funnel and what are some of the first steps they can take to build one?
Good question. In this case, I generally don't go on the offensive in the sense of trying to sell someone a funnel. I never will. I'm a big fan of use the right tool for the job. I use certain tools in my business, but if someone wants to use another one, that's great. And I feel the same way. Specifically in this case, I'm talking about a sales funnel in the sense of a series of pages that sell a product and perhaps offer some additional products like upsells or order bumps, things like that. So generally, people are at the point where they come to me and they say either we want to improve our funnel or we want to implement one. We'd like your help, maybe understanding what we could offer and what it would look like. And I think it can be very important. But then I take that same idea and back it up. If a business comes to me and they're not sure what the best product would be, or don't have a good feeling for what they should focus on, to me, it's a little bit of a red flag. In general, I wouldn't work with them unless I felt like I could uncover that for them, which I sometimes can do. But again, not to be vague, it's just one of those where I don't want to put someone into this and say, hey, let's just build it. It needs to be kind of the right fit at the right time.
Thank you. So I want to also talk about semantic mastery. So you are the founder of that. Tell me more about what is that? What does that company do?
Sure, sure. So yeah, if we go back now, so this is after around the time I quit my first job or my second job as an engineer, and I had started building websites. I joined a mastermind group, and so lots of people. We'd do weekly meetings, and we eventually kind of narrowed down to a core group. And the people who were listening to us were saying, "Gosh, you guys, this is really good. You should charge for this." So that's always a good sign. So we started doing that, and eventually incorporated and formed Semantic Mastery. And so there's 5 of us, and that started in 2013 and has been going since then. So primarily it's SEO training, both for the business owners if they want to do it themselves, SEOs or agency owners that are looking to add that. So yeah, it just started as a way for us to teach ourselves and reinforce what we were learning and then sharing that with others.
So you have a motto there, which is no fluff, just verified results.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how somebody can argue with that, but how do we live that? Like, it's comfortable to stay in fluff, okay? But verified results. So where did that motto come from, and how do you implement that in the business world to make it a bigger impact?
Definitely. It came from one of my partners, to be honest, now that it's 7 or 8 years back. It was either Bradley Benner or Marco Benavides, but definitely one of them. And for us, it's important in the SEO world. I'm sure for any business owners that have dealt with having like an SEO service, or you're getting bombarded by emails for people offering you SEO services, it can be really hit or miss as far as what's going on there. And so, for us, it was really important that it's real world and verified results. As far as how, we can apply that in the business world, I think it's important that we ask ourselves about this, ask ourselves questions, how are we going to measure this? Like the podcast today, what's the definition of success for you? What's the definition of success for me? Asking ourselves to put some metrics to these types of things instead of just saying we're going to increase our marketing or we're going to make a sales funnel. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to measure it? And how is that going to happen? And I think that, applying those in that way sometimes can be uncomfortable, but obviously if you're not doing that, then you're kind of meandering around and you're not going to end up where you want to be.
So if we both adopt, embrace the concept of no fluff, just verified results, what is the success criteria for you at the podcast and for me at the podcast today?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I can't answer it for you. I would turn it around and ask you about that. For me, I'm happy with the answer not always being quantitative, that there can be a qualitative answer to it. But for me, before I came on here, I was rereading my notes. I was listening to a couple of the more recent podcasts you'd have after I listened to a couple of weeks ago. And for me, I have a qualitative answer that I want to come on, feel comfortable, and provide information that I felt was useful to other people. And so for me, having my notes on the screen in front of me, and as well as a little notepad as I'm writing some notes, to me, that makes this a success for me.
I also want to go a step beyond and put you on the spot. And not only did you prepare, but half an hour before, or 15, 20 minutes before, I got a LinkedIn connection from you. And to me, if this was a professional dating, so right now we are on the work front, not on date 1, we are on the date 2 already because the LinkedIn connection has already happened. And the second thing for a podcast host, before the podcast starts, there's a lot of anxiety. There are times guests don't show up. And as Clint, myself, Sana, we were saying, we knew that you will be there with a lot of excitement because you already have connected with me just before. It just put me at a position of comfort. So I really want to talk about the level of preparation that you go through at every level, at a human level, as well as, the content is really breakthrough. And my success criteria is very simple. Like, I just want to share a secret with you. Mm-hmm. For me to talk to a VIP guest, there are 3 criteria. I have to like the person. We are all kids at heart. Come on. Like, we never played with people, like playing soccer or anything with people who we don't like. Second, you have to respect the person. Because if you don't respect the person and what he or she does, it's very tough to have a conversation. And third is, when you and I are talking, it really has to be at a level where one person, even if one person listens to us, he or she will pull a chair. It's just like if you and I were having in a coffee shop a discussion, the person says, hey, can I just listen? Of course, join, man. But can you get the next round of coffee? Then, of course, he does that. And that to me is the success criteria is one person at a time, just get them something. But if you and I are not connecting and having fun, and having a respectful, enlightening conversation, that person would not be intrigued. So thanks for bringing that out.
Yeah.
So as you start helping businesses, what is a big win? Like, what is one of your proudest moments that you, if I was your bestest friend growing up and I didn't know much about your business, you would say, Arjun, guess what we did? What's that moment?
Oh man, number wise, there's one that I'm not gonna lie. This is just makes me feel good to say. It's one of just not even a humble brag. So on a abandoned cart series, which anyone familiar with e-commerce, whether you bought something online or you own a store, you'll know if you abandon the cart, sometimes there's an automated email that'll show up. I helped one client with a 483% improvement in revenue from rewriting their series. That is cool, and that's fun to brag with maybe the friend who understands the business side of that. But more recently, I have a new client that was referred to me, started working with him in March. And I recently moved to Seattle and got to meet him in person. And we went out to lunch. And for me, working online remotely for years and then dealing with the pandemic, for me, it was just really cool to meet this person and to have them telling me how happy they are, how the growth is helping them in terms of the email marketing and what they see in front of them, and then just sitting down and kind of like we're doing, just having this conversation and respecting the person, liking them, and looking at, hey, wow, this is something that we can really move forward together, and just really, really enjoying that. And I look back at where I was 10 years ago, and to be able to say, yeah, I have clients, I like them, I respect them, they respect me, and we have a good time on top of doing business and making money. I don't know, puts a smile on my face, makes me happy.
As I'm listening to you, I just meet a lot of super professionals who play on a two-dimensional world where they play at the intersection of what they are good at and what they're passionate about. Okay? But I also feel that from time to time, I meet human beings like you who play on a third dimension too, is making an impact. Because if you were, like some of you, when you're listening to this, you cannot see Adam's smile, but his demeanor, like if I could do facial recognition, he was a totally different person when he was talking about that impact he made. And I really feel that is the good addictiveness that gets us going to the next level. So Adam, I'm going to ask you a question totally from a different plan.
Sure.
This is maybe my 80th episode of my podcast. If you were to help me with marketing of the podcast, what would be a few areas? I don't want detailed plans. I just want a few overall big ideas for people to look at a very tactical way of how you approach, how you start.
Yeah, definitely. From the podcast perspective, I would, and this is the intersection of what I enjoy doing is email and going back and looking. So obviously I've looked at some of your information and I don't know what of this you do. So take it with a grain of salt, but I would offer primarily what people call lead magnet. What is it that people can get that would impact them the most right away, so that then you can follow up with them with email when there's new episodes, sending them a quick update, and letting people know about that. In terms of what that might look like, for some people, it's a cheat sheet, or maybe the top 10 things that have come out of the podcast that could help any entrepreneur or executive, and then following up with them just on that same vein, if that's what those people are interested in, give them more of what they want. I know that I'm signed up for a lot of podcast newsletters because so much good information comes through those, and you don't get that in normal channels.
Love that. Thank you. So now let's look at your journey. And you talked about your wife. Is there a person or an event that inspired you and influenced you the most in your journey that you're comfortable sharing?
Oh gosh, it's going to be tough to choose. I think I'll choose one of my partners in Semantic Mastery, Hernan Vasquez, Argentinian, great guy, much younger than me, but just meeting him and the motivation and the fire that guy has really motivated me. And I generally tend to be a measure twice, cut once type of person. And not that he isn't, but his ability to take action has just constantly motivated me, where I've seen how quickly he's grown and made changes and made difficult but good decisions, and not only for himself, but for clients as well. And so that really helped me out, because I understood we can move so much faster. Most of the time it's just ourselves holding our own selves back. And so learning from him how he's doing what he's doing, again, as kind of a mentor in that one area, has been really important to me.
Thanks for sharing. That to me is a very special connection, and having somebody in your team who has both sides balanced is detailed but taking actions, is priceless. Your background is very, very clear that science, physics has a big role. There's a lot of logical thinking and, intuitive thinking, you see beyond. But at the same time, I also feel that there's a second side, which I want to explore a little bit, is the feeling side. At Zen Mango, that's the consulting company I have. I believe we are all about feelings. It's all about we are in the feeling business. However good a solution you offer, whether it's a pizza to email marketing or funnels, if you make me feel stupid, why will I work with you? And, why will I work with you if I don't feel good working with you? So how do you balance that quant geeky side of yours and then email to funnel? There's a lot of creative side. Tell me a little bit about the balance. Like, how does this whole thing balance in your incredible mind as you share?
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, it's ongoing. I certainly don't have the ultimate answer for this. It's just I know that it appeals to me and having both. I also used to work as a longshoreman back before I even joined the Marine Corps. And so I'd be working on ships late at night or working at a grain elevator. And I remember thinking like, I enjoy this physical work, but I can't do this all the time. And so it's finding that balance. Like I like the analytical side. I like seeing that, with e-commerce emails and using the system called Klaviyo to send emails that I can see the exact ROI on emails. But I don't want to do that all the time. And I shouldn't focus on that all the time. There's also the creative side. And so I think it's really just finding that balance that kind of one fulfills me, but also fulfills the needs of the business. And then realizing too, if I have a area I struggle with on the creative side, which is, definitely the area I need the most help in, then I find experts to help me with that and hire for that. And then that just helps me improve as well over time.
So you talked about your different partners, and each one of you are different human beings, different skill sets, common vision. What's the secret for three minds who are totally different, but a common vision to work together to make, instead of pushing each other negatively, you strengthen each other and become more than three whole leaders? It's something big you're creating.
Yeah, I think, I certainly don't have the end all be all answers. So this is another area I'm fully happy to say I am definitely learning this over time. And I think it's a lifelong goal. And I think that some of this falls back to what we were talking about having respect. And if you respect someone, even though you may disagree, you may think they're flat out wrong. But if you respect them, then you can discuss it with them. It doesn't turn into an argument. It turns into a disagreement, which is healthy. And I think that, there's, I apologize, I forget who wrote the book, but I believe it's Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And so one of those, taking that to heart and remembering to, instead of maybe getting upset or angry, is asking a question, really trying to find out what's behind this. If you have a disagreement, are you sure you understand what the disagreement is? Because a lot of times there's confusion. So I think that those two things can really help.
I love the concept of good leaders and good questions. I have two micro stories to share. Early part of my career, I'm like the junior most person who made the cut to travel for an offsite. I was really excited to, business trip to an offsite. And I wanted to participate. At the end of the first 2 hours, the senior vice president of the team took me to the one corner of the conference room, and said, do you want me to tell you that all your ideas are dumb, or do you want to figure it out yourself? And I'm like, wow. And he just explained to me by saying, if I continue, I would be going back a little sooner than planned. Like,
oh, wow.
Okay. So it was like, if you go back, from a bigger picture point of view, you showed me the problem and told me the consequence, which was literally, he could have just told me, saved my ego by saying, can you shut up? Like I would have shut up.
Yeah.
And then I met this incredible leader who taught me the only question that is a dumb question is the question that you do not ask. And when I pushed him more, what he taught me was, Arjun, even if you have a dumb question, what happens is when I ask that question, let us say, Adam, you and I are working together, that could trigger something in your mind which could open a door, because he taught me that even the dumbest of dumb question has a seed somewhere of question mark, something unknown, which triggered and manifested into that. And I really find that we all have responsibility to create the environment to ask these questions. and then ask the question. But I'm so glad we went there. So let's go back.
Mhm.
And if Adam could go back in life, and you are a high school senior, very excited about life, will make an impact, what would be one piece of advice you would give that young, amazing Adam?
Probably do what I did, but kind of the idea of fail faster. I think, looking back, I definitely am a normal human being. I have fears and concerns like anyone else, but to get rid of that much more quickly and realize that, this is a journey. Don't be a donkey, right? Like put yourself in and do one thing. Don't half-ass two things or three things, but go in, and it's okay to decide that maybe something isn't a good fit, or to take the best out of one thing and leave the rest and move on and do something else. And there's good ways to do that. Just because you decide that, this job or this career or this path isn't for you, it doesn't mean you're quitting or there's something wrong with you, right? And you can do it especially if it's a team, you may feel guilty, but there's ways to do that responsibly, and to understand that if you're doing what you want to do the best, then that's really the best that you can do, not only for yourself, but the people around you.
So to push you a little bit and disagree with you a little bit by asking questions.
Sure.
I get the concept of failing faster. But at the same time, for Adam to leave Marine Corp, he had to leave 100%. That means that you needed the surety to leave. Then when you left physics, you had to have the surety that this is where I'm going. Because I really feel that unless you say, I quit with all your heart, you cannot open the next door. Because if you are in both sides of the door, it's a disaster place. What's the balance of fail faster, but fail enough for you to know that this door is closed forever by choice? Like, how do you balance that?
I think that obviously it's highly personal. In my case, in some of those senses, there was no getting out of the Marine Corps early. There was no easy exit. I mean, you can, but there's some bad consequences. So, of course, I wanted to finish that. With my degree, I finished it. With the job, that was the first time where I just said, you know what, I've got to leave. And I did not have a safety parachute or a blanket. I said, I've just got to make this work because the situation is so bad. But I think that how you could do this is kind of what you said, is you've got to make that choice and decide to be fully in one area and not the other. And that's honestly kind of what I mean. I would improve that in myself because it took me a while. And looking back now with hindsight, I can realize, there was several signs that maybe this wasn't a good fit. And I had signs of where I should be heading. And it took me longer to realize that. And as time goes on, I try to get better about recognizing those.
So when you left Marine Corp, did you ever second guess that decision?
Oh, 100%. Right?
Like, to me, what did you do? Like days, let's say tonight, you're second guessing. What do you do? How do you process and stay true to your current path?
I think a lot of it is kind of an ongoing process for me. And I haven't always had this, but it's a review, asking yourself, whether it's a daily process. I do a morning review, I do a weekly review, I do a quarterly planning, and asking myself, like, what's working well, what's not working well? Is this helping me or not? And a lot of times realizing that worry is just that. The human brain is a wonderful thing, but it was created is here to help us survive. And a lot of this worry is needless. And for me, I kind of had to take this to an extreme because I tend to worry. And so I wrote down in a digital manner, I created what I called a fears book. And if something was really bugging me, I would write it down. And then every quarter I would go back and look. And I made myself write it explicitly, like something like, all of my clients are going to leave me and they'll all hate me. That's being a little bit hyperbolic, but something like that. And then I'd go back and review it. And I had to tell myself, did this come true? And if not, was it worth worrying about? And a lot of times just getting that stuff out of your head can be the solution. And you realize how ridiculous it is because almost none of this stuff will ever come true.
Really love that. So you talked about processes. Now, I feel success that is not planned cannot be repeated. So is there a process that you have, a daily ritual for your work day? When you wake up in the morning, first thing, and when you're winding up, finishing your work day, what's the last thing that you're comfortable sharing?
Definitely. I've developed mine over time and I'm happy to share it. And then I'll just say that, this is personal and it's an ongoing thing. For a lot of us out there, we're looking for improve productivity, better time management, but there is no, I guess, productivity nirvana from my experience and from everyone I've seen and, people going in front of me at higher levels. It's ongoing. And a lot of it is just being consistent and finding the system that works for you. So that's my preface to this. So now sharing mine, I get up, and for me, it's really important to get some form of exercise. I just feel better mentally, physically. I'm in a better position. And that sometimes could be a walk. Usually it's a run, could be a bike ride, but I get up and do something where I'm moving. And then after that, follow that up with a little bit of reading. Could be just about anything, could be a book, could be some articles, but it can't be emails and it can't be work related. And then after that, I get down and I have my own review where I look through notifications for my project manager. I look at my calendar, set any alarms. So I make sure that I make a podcast, I don't miss meetings, things like that. I want to be consistent. I want people to depend on me. So that's very important. And then going through and planning out my day. And this is something I avoided for a long time, was using a calendar to plan my day, and started doing that probably 4 or 5 years ago. And that's probably been the single biggest thing that has probably improved my productivity over the last few years, giving yourself that reality check of you can write 10 things down that you're going to do, but until you put them on the calendar and you figure out how much time you actually have or don't have, you're kind of just telling yourself you can do it, and odds are you can't. So I think that using the calendar is really important. And then one final thing, I don't do this, but I look to do this down the road. Cal Newport, he wrote a book called Deep Work, and he's also got an article about how he ends the day. And I think this is fantastic. He does kind of a shutdown ritual. He writes down anything that's on his mind. He goes through his calendar for the next day, and then he literally says out loud, "I am done for the day." And I thought that was fantastic, because I know a lot of us, we bring the work home, or we bring it with us, and we're constantly thinking about it. And just doing this, having this process can really help you put that down and move on. And for a lot of us, it's talking with our family or spending time with friends, and we want to be there and actually do that.
Brilliant. Love that. And thanks for sharing. And this is very important, because the wealth you and I both have is the same 24 hours. So it's how we allocate those hours, how we spend it, and especially simple things when worry or anything is taking time out. It's just like on my laptop, if I have 15 things running on the background, my productivity has to go down. So love the sharing.
Thank you.
So Adam, you're a fascinating human being. You are a fascinating professional, incredible high impact. So the year is 2030. You and I are doing maybe the third follow-up or the fourth follow-up of our podcast.
Sure.
Where would Adam be in year 2030?
2030, man, that is a long ways off. But let's see, by then I can tell you I'm going to be living, there's an island called Whidbey Island. It's northwest of Seattle. I'm going to be living there with a little bit of a small farm, couple dogs, and I'm going to be working about 5 hours a day in the morning online, having the same morning routine. And I'm going to have 2 or 3 months out of the year where I'm going to be doing what I would like to call slow travel, and be working from one place for about a month at a time. And this is going to include my wife, who at that time is going to be still working as a scientist, but able to travel for the same 2 or 3 months out of the year. And we will still be running and healthy and active. And so those are the big things and the big drivers of my life. I want to be active. I want to be traveling. I want to be with my wife. And I want to still be doing some sort of work with clients or other people on at least a part-time basis.
Love that.
Yeah.
So fascinating conversation. So Adam, anything else before we wrap up you want to share with our listeners that we haven't talked about?
Just to circle back to the daily routine type of a thing, this stuff is almost fractal in a sense that you could start with a daily routine, and you can apply this to a weekly routine and apply that to a monthly routine and a quarterly routine. And it's not that it needs to be complex. Don't beat yourself up if you can't stick to it. Just get back on. Consistency with this stuff is so important. And a lot of times we try to implement a big system like GTD or getting things done. And it's more important that you do something and you do it consistently, and then you can make changes to it instead of trying to make these huge changes. And this is, of course, applies in so many different areas. It's what you do consistently that will make the big changes.
And this last thing connects me back to reminds me about an article I read. I think it is Jack Blackburn, I could be wrong, who wrote this very fascinating article, and a book I think is also around it, that doing something 100% is easier than doing it 95%. And once I read it, immediately I started looking at myself as the 100% Arjun. I brush my teeth every morning, 100% Arjun. I shower daily. My poor young brother cannot do that, doesn't do that. So he doesn't, I get it. But once I found 100 things I'm 100% at, I was very proud of myself. And then, to be honest with you, I was struggling to go to the gym thrice a week. I set a new goal. I will go to the gym first Monday of the month. Can I do that 100% of the time? Yes, I can. And setting that goal really helped, because otherwise I was setting myself from 0 to thrice a week, and I would just feel guilty, like the guilt of not going to the gym that extra time. And the first Monday worked like magic. Like night before, my wife knows Arjun is going to the gym. The clothes are out, everything. It's a big ritual. After 3 months, I told myself, can I go to the gym every other Monday? Yes, I can. So now I am at every Monday, but I really like that way of building and not just be too hard on yourself, because life is too short.
Definitely. And I like what you said there about you're talking setting your environment. So like, yeah, putting out the clothes the night before, hey, they're already there. Like you don't worry about it. It becomes that routine. Well, there's the clothes. I better put them on. It'd be weird if I didn't, right?
And my wife and myself, we have a ritual too. I will even start showing muscles and everything, the fake muscles, of course. Like now it is a fun thing. It's a ritual for us. And a good, fun ritual becomes something really cool. So Adam, this is something I want to finish on. I asked you a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I do. I'm not sure if I need to listen to more of the podcast or find out so much more information, but I mean, I would love to hear your answers to these questions. So I'm curious for any listeners, is this something where can someone go to find out more about you?
Like, so why can't we do this? Why don't we schedule a reverse podcast with you?
Love it.
You and I think it's only fair. You were so honest, and we will schedule something where Adam asks the questions and Arjun will answer.
I will definitely do that, because it's like, I know about you. I know your, superficially your background. I know these details, but I want to dig into it a little bit. So that sounds great.
Absolutely. It will be a fascinating conversation. Thank you. Thank you all for this incredible conversation with Adam. And, at the very beginning, I just knew this would be fascinating because not just where he is, but the path. And a few things that hit home was nothing in his life was ever wasted, any of these experiences. But he also has chosen to close some of those doors to focus 100% on the current opportunity to make an impact. And if I take one thing from the conversation is the smile on Adam's face when he was talking about the impact he made, because I really think that that is the good addictiveness that we are looking at in today's world. If once you feel that, there's no going back. So thank you, Adam, for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. Looking forward to bringing you another conversation very soon with another leader from another walk of life. Happy listening. Thank you.
You've been listening to Secrets to Win Big with Arjun Sen, founder and CEO of Zen Mango, top brand growth driver, and a former Fortune 500 executive who has been called one of the most marketing intelligent minds in the business. To learn more, visit www.zenmango.com. Share this podcast with your friends and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.